Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2. Welcome back to True North Sports Talk Podcast. This is your home for Toronto, Canadian, and just pro sports in North America in general. We're talking the biggest stories in all sports across the spectrum today. And we had an absolutely loaded weekend. We got playoffs going on all over the place. On, I believe it was Friday night, we had a Canadian team in Ontario make it to the finals of the Ontario Hockey League, which is very close to being one of the top leagues in basically next to the NHL. There's a lot of drafted players in that league, for those of you who don't know. To my left right now, we have, as per usual, on a Sunday afternoon, as long as there is a game, there's Blue Jays there. They are trailing 4-0 in the top of the sixth, I believe. They had a rough bottom of the fifth. Gave up 3 runs. They got runners on first and second right now. Hopefully, we will see a bit of an explosion like we did yesterday. Although there is one out already, which they didn't have during that explosion yesterday. So, 2 playoff landscapes that are going on as usual. You got the NBA, you got the NHL, and you got the OHL, or the CHL as it were, the Canadian Hockey League. So you got Western Junior, QMJHL, you got OHL, all of that. So the NHL's first round is complete except for one game, and that is today, I believe, Montreal versus Tampa Bay. You had the second round start yesterday with the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Philadelphia Flyers. And the NBA is heading into its second round with the exception of a game 7 today. And that is our Toronto Raptors hoping for one more series, taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers in one of the biggest game 7s around Toronto since, well, the World Series last year, obviously, but in basketball terms, since 2019 against the Philadelphia 76ers. And yeah, that same rim from that 2019 series gave us another day of hope. The Kitchener Rangers made it to the OHL finals by beating the Windsor Spitfires 4-1. And that's the first time they've reached the OHL finals since 2008. Now, our final segment before we sign off will be history in the making. We have the Toronto Tempo kicking off their inaugural WNBA season this year with Canada and Toronto's own Kia Nurse on the roster. Blue Jays got at least one so far. They're still batting here in the top of the sixth, so we're at 4-1 now. And yeah, we are recording this a few days before this airs, which will be on Wednesday. Let me just take a quick calendar here. So we're airing this on the 6th. So that was 3 days before we air this that we're recording it. So we've got your segments today: NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, as usual, all the stuff we're talking about. Let's dive right into this. So the 2026 Stanley Cup playoffs, first round, well, again, almost officially done. Game 7, Lightning Canadiens, that's tonight at 6 p.m. So by the time you see this, they will be whichever team wins will be in the second round already. And so, yeah, Carolina Hurricanes defeated the Ottawa Senators, as you heard, in a 4-0 sweep. They were pretty dominant. Now they're taking on the Philadelphia Flyers, and they barely broke a sweat, you could say. Good on Ottawa for actually making the playoffs, but they just couldn't make any noise this year. Carolina's forecheck was suffocating. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense, as they say. Jordan Martinook delivered a double overtime winner in Game 2. That could have been a real turning point in that series for Ottawa had it gone the other way. The Hurricanes lost just one game all first round and have now opened their second round against, as we said, Philadelphia. Carolina won 3-0. Rod Brindamore's team is the betting favorite for all you sports bettors out there to come out of the East in the Stanley Cup. And from what we're seeing, there's a good reason for that. Now, depending on how tonight goes, the Montreal Canadiens might have something to say about that, because that's a pretty good team up there in Montreal. Don't sleep on them. If they can get past Tampa Bay tonight, I don't know, that's a pretty hard team to beat. Carolina was second in the league behind only Colorado. That makes sense. They were strong all year long. A quick word on Ottawa, and this will sting for Sens fans possibly. This was supposed to be a competitive series. Even if they didn't win, they were still supposed to be more in the series than they were. The Senators finished the regular season with 44 wins and 99 points. That is a good team. Tim Stützle had 83 points this year and was expected to push Carolina's defensive corps. Problem is, he can't do it alone. Brady Tkachuk, he showed up the way he should have a little bit, but there was a lot more work to do for that front office. It was very evident throughout the series. Just never happened the way they were supposed to. The Hurricanes, as we saw, are built for playoff hockey in a way most teams aren't. They learned a lot from getting put out by the Florida Panthers the last 3 years in a row. Ottawa got a bit of a reality check. But this is a young and developing team. Travis Green, their coach, is a steady hand at the wheel there. Their future is very bright. The fact that they made the playoffs with everything that surrounded them with Linus Ullmark this season, and then some other things that went on late in the year, they did really, really well. The Philadelphia Flyers defeated the Pittsburgh Penguins 4-2. I was watching that last game. It was a real tight game into overtime. It was 0-0. This was one of the best storylines in the first round, considering it looked like Philadelphia was going to run away with this series, and Pittsburgh had other ideas. But this is the first playoff series for Philadelphia in the last 5 years. So the fact that they knocked off Crosby, Malkin, Letang, and the Penguins, that's a pretty big deal for the city of Philadelphia. As always, Crosby was a force. He played in his 181st career playoff game. During the series, Philadelphia's goaltending was just better than Pittsburgh's, and quite frankly, that was to be expected when you have an untested goalie in the playoffs and a goalie who lost in the Stanley Cup Finals the last 2 years and was only there because of the team in front of him. Stuart Skinner is not the answer in your goal crease. Can't say Tristan Jarry was either, but I mean, this just wasn't in it for Pittsburgh. They have a lot of work to do. I can't see them getting much better without getting rid of Kyle Dubas and just going back to the drawing board. I mean, Cam York scored the overtime winner in Game 6, and they advanced to play Carolina. Crosby deserves enormous credit. He came back from that lower body injury in the Olympics, and he gave Pittsburgh everything he had. At 38 years old, him and Ovechkin will be questioned early and often in this offseason as to whether we'll see them again next year. Crosby, as we've seen all year, though, is still one of the best players in the league, and the Penguins as a team just were simply outplayed by a hungrier, more physical, a younger opponent, and they just had better goaltending. Let's face it. Lightning Canadiens. This has been the series to watch in the first round. It's gone 6 games, 5 overtime decisions, one of the most thrilling opening rounds in recent memory. Montreal wins in OT in Game 1. Game 2, Tampa won in overtime. Game 3, Montreal in overtime. Game 4, Tampa. Game 5, Montreal. Then Game 6, Tampa won 1-0 in overtime. That was J.J. Moser with the overtime winner to level the series at 3 games apiece. Tonight's Game 7 is in Tampa Bay. As you've seen all series long, it's a coin flip. Everything is on the line. And doodly-doodly-doo, could it be Montreal versus, almost choke on these words, but Buffalo in the second round? My goodness, the Buffalo Sabres not only made the playoffs for the first time in 11 years, they won the first round fairly handily against the Boston Bruins. Are they here to stay? Lindy Ruff has that team rolling right now, and I would say he gets my vote for, I believe it's the Jack Adams, as Coach of the Year. For Canadiens fans, there are millions watching this series because they're the only Canadian team left now. More on that later. Montreal advancing would be a dream scenario. Martin St. Louis' young Canadians have one of the best stories in the entire first round, as do the Buffalo Sabres. They've proven they belong at this level of competition. If they can get past Tampa Bay tonight, they'll face Buffalo, as mentioned, who just beat Boston in the first round in what would be... no, that doesn't make sense either. It would be an Eastern matchup that would have never been on anyone's bingo card going into the season. The Western Conference first round, that is complete as the Avalanche, reigning President's Trophy winners, handled their business cleanly with a 4-0 sweep of the Los Angeles Kings, possibly ending Anze Kopitar's career. Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, and the rest of the team, including a returning Nazem Kadri, look like the team we expected to see. Now they face the Minnesota Wild. That's another team that was on nobody's bingo card going into the season. But they look every bit the team that deserves to be playing the Colorado Avalanche in the second round. That series starts tonight as well. The Wild just eliminated Dallas in 6 games and are coming in with some serious momentum. That series features what CBS Sports called the 2 best defensemen in the world, obviously Cale Makar, and for the Minnesota Wild, you have Quinn Hughes, part of the gold medal winning American side at the Olympics. It's an incredible individual matchup. Again, this is a team sport though, so we'll see how this one pans out. As we said, the Minnesota Wild defeated the Dallas Stars 4-2, the Wild's first playoff series since 2015. Dallas had won 3 straight games at one point to tie things at 2 before Minnesota closed them out in 6. Joel Eriksson Ek, Matt Boldy, Kirill Kaprizov were the offensive engines, and Minnesota is a live contender in the West. So this is a team that played without fear all series, and you'd almost look at this series and go, okay, whoever wins this series, good shot at them ending up in the Stanley Cup. Top of the 7th now, seeing a 4-1 score still in Blue Jays action. Switching gears though to the Vegas Golden Knights, they defeated the Utah Mammoth 4-2, and this is the first playoff series in Utah and the first playoff series for a long time for the previous Arizona Coyotes. The series opened with Utah winning Game 2 and Game 3. They took a 2-1 lead before Vegas rattled off 3 straight wins. Mitch Marner, yes, that Mitchell Marner, he's in Vegas now, has 7 points in the series. Yeah, those Leafs, they really made a boo-boo with that one. Jack Eichel had 9 points, as you would expect. They now face yet another fairly big surprise in the entire playoffs, and that is the Anaheim Ducks that fairly easily handled the Edmonton Oilers. And we'll get to that. Anaheim defeated Edmonton 4-2. The upset of the entire first round, perhaps you could say. The biggest story in the Western Conference, to be sure, the Anaheim Ducks, a team that hadn't won a playoff series since 2017, eliminated Connor McDavid and the Oilers in 6 games. The Oilers looked tired. They had the same old problems with Tristan Jarry and their goaltending situation, kind of like Pittsburgh. That was kind of a redundant trade for both teams when they made it, considering neither of the goalies involved are the type of goalie that could save your season. The Ducks had 14 players making their NHL playoff debut in this series. Their defense was dominating throughout. They had an 8-for-16 power play through the series. Leo Carlsson, Troy Terry, and Chris Kreider each had a goal and 2 assists in the clinching 5-2 Game 6 win. The Oilers side of this is kind of heartbreaking a little bit, especially if you're an Edmonton fan. McDavid played on a rolled ankle, suffered in Game 2. Draisaitl missed the last 14 games of the regular season with a knee injury. Both were clearly hampered. They tried to push through. McDavid scored just once in the series. He had led the NHL with 138 regular season points. The playoffs are a cruel animal. Knobloch said afterwards, this being the coach, pretty much the story for most of the year. We just didn't defend well enough. That sentence tells you pretty much all you need to know. The Ducks now face the Golden Knights starting Monday night, so by the time you see this, at least Game 1 will be in the books. Vegas is favored, but Anaheim's already proven a capable underdog. And they've proven people wrong at least once this season. Their young core, Lacombe, Carlson, Gauthier, Senek, Cutter, Gauthier. These players have no fear. So this could be a pretty compelling second round series. It could go 7 and either way. So for the second round matchups that are set, in the East, you got the Hurricanes Flyers. Carolina already leads 1-0. Sabres versus either the Lightning or the Canadiens. That game will start today when you're seeing this, as of May 6th. In the West, you got the Avalanche versus Wild. Game 1 today. Golden Knights versus Ducks. Game 1 Monday night. Playoffstatus.com cup odds for all you bettors out there have the Avalanche listed 36% chance, Hurricanes 28%, the Sabres 12%, the Wild 6%, the Lightning 6%, Ducks 4%, Canadiens 3%, and the Flyers 3%. The Avalanche, obviously the clear favorite. McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen. It's a terrifying group for the rest of the teams left. The Wild are playing their best hockey in a decade. If they can take game 1 in Denver, this series becomes very interesting very quickly. Puck drops about 6 hours from now, and we'll be watching closely. All right, switching gears altogether now, we have the NBA playoffs. The first round, with the exception of tonight's game with the Raptors Cavaliers, the first round is complete. Second round bracket is pretty much ready to go. And it was pretty unpredictable in certain areas in the first round. So let's break it all down. You have the Eastern Conference. Although this is a Western Conference team. Oklahoma swept Phoenix in 4. The defending champs handled business pretty cleanly. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was pretty brilliant. OKC, the whistle slides their way a lot, but they are considered the best team in basketball right now. And that's pretty much a full stop. We've all seen the slanted whistle, so we don't need to go into that too much. They finished 64-18 in the regular season and looked every bit of it against Phoenix in the second round. They'll face the Lakers. We'll get to that. The New York Knicks defeated the Atlanta Hawks 4-2. Atlanta put up a bit more of a fight than I kind of expected after trading Trae Young before the deadline there to the Washington Wizards. The Knicks wrapped up their series in 6 games. There was a game they won by 51 points. Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns were the unquestionable leaders for New York. They now face the Philadelphia 76ers in what was a pretty stunning upset by those 76ers. Nick Nurse, we know he can do this, don't we, Raptors fans? They pulled it through. And we're going to talk about that right now. The 76ers were playing the Boston Celtics, a team that, when healthy, is one of the scariest teams. You have Jason Tatum. You have Jaylen Brown. There was an injury in this series, but everyone has them all year long. This is the biggest upset in the Eastern Conference first round. I don't know that we've had an upset this big in a very, very long time. Boston was up 3-1 at one point. It looked like they were just going to roll through. Jason Tatum went down with a left knee stiffness and was ruled out for Game 7. Without Tatum, the Celtics, they were in a rough spot. I mean, they just had Jaylen Brown left, basically. The Sixers, who came through the play-in, they rallied from 3-1 down. They won 3 straight games and stunned Boston in Game 7 at the TD Garden. Tyrese Maxey was extraordinary all season long. The Sixers are now playing the Knicks, as we mentioned, first game tonight at 8 p.m. That is must-watch basketball. By the time you see this, that game will be in the books. Tatum's injury was a massive storyline going forward. The Celtics are eliminated, yes, but if Tatum needs surgery or this carries into next season at all, that'll change the entire outlook for next season. As we mentioned, it'll be 3 days ago when you see this, but the Cleveland Cavaliers and Toronto Raptors, Game 7 tonight. We have to spend proper time on this one because this has been one of the tightest fought series from tip-off in the Eastern Conference. 6 games, the home team has won every single one. And one of the most ridiculous shots in Raptors history by one R.J. Barrett happened the other night. They were down 3-2 in the series all year long. They've been scrappy. They've fought hard. They've played well when it counts the most. And they are a very resilient team. They were playing without Brandon Ingram, who had heel issues, which you don't want him playing and blow out an Achilles or something, because then he'll be gone way longer than they can afford to have him be gone for. Scotty Barnes had 25 points, 14 assists, and 7 rebounds. That is very Joker-like basketball. Jacoby Walter, who has been a breakout star of this playoff run and this year in general, scored 24 points. R.J. Barrett had 24. 3 players combining for 73 points. You'll take that all day long. With 1.2 seconds left in overtime, the Raptors were trailing by 1. R.J. Barrett launches a three-pointer, hits the back of the rim, goes straight up, and comes straight down through the cylinder. They're saying it went higher than 7 feet in the air. So it was probably close to 20 feet in the air. Raptors win 112-110. Air Canada Centre, sorry y'all, I can't call it anything else, kind of like Skydome, erupted. Jurassic Park erupted. Darko Rajakovic said after the game, it was only half a second, but it felt like an eternity to everyone watching. He said, I was happy for him, for this team, and for this city. Immediately, the comparisons were made to Kawhi Leonard's 2019 bounce shot against Philadelphia. Bit of a different situation because it wasn't clinching the series, but that was a game winner. That was the same building, the same kind of feel, the exact same end of the floor. Unexplainable bounce that sends the arena into an absolute frenzy. Evan Mobley had a chance to win it for Cleveland at the buzzer. His three-pointer bounced off the front rim, and the series tied 3-3. Game 7 tonight in Cleveland. The Cavs have never lost a Game 7 at home in franchise history. The Raptors have the momentum. They have a city behind them. They have a country behind them. And Donovan Mitchell's thought was, protect home court. That's all you can do. The Raptors love to pull apart those histories of no Game 7s being lost. So we'll see how Barnes, Barrett, Walter, and company are able to do as they are playing their best basketball. As we mentioned, Brandon Ingram missed Game 6 with a right heel injury. He's listed as questionable. Emmanuel Quickley's out for the entire series with his hamstring issue. So we genuinely don't know the result as of the time of this recording. You will know it before you watch this. But everything about this series tells you it will go down to the final possession. And this is playoff basketball at its finest. It's the thing that gets you out of bed, gets you excited for this. And let's jump over to the Western Conference. The San Antonio Spurs, they defeat the Portland Trailblazers 4-1. Wembanyama made his playoff debut in the NBA. He was everything that you could hope for and more. He averaged 26, 12, and 4 blocks, 3 assists across 5 games. That's Tim Robinson, Tim Duncan, Vlade Divac territory. The Blazers basically had no answer for him. I'm not sure anyone really does. Wemby's now in the second round facing the Minnesota Timberwolves starting Monday night. At 22, this is the beginning of what could be a very legendary playoff career. I am not one for predictions, but if I was to choose a dark horse team to defeat the Oklahoma City Thunder and compete for the NBA championship, this San Antonio Spurs team would be my pick. Moving on to the next set of teams, you have the Los Angeles Lakers defeating the Houston Rockets 4-2. LeBron James and Bronny James, we talked about this earlier in the playoffs, made history in Game 1 as we covered on the last episode. The Lakers won the series 4-2 with LeBron doing LeBron things. Luka had some issues with injuries during this series. LeBron, though, averaged 19, 8, and 13 in Game 1 alone. They did it without Luka for a lot of the series. He missed the first 2 games with a hamstring strain, was limited in Games 3 and 4. Luka's back, and the Lakers faced the Thunder in the next round. Forgive me for not being partial here, but I'll take the Thunder in that series. That series starts Tuesday. LeBron and SGA in the second round. That's must-watch TV. Minnesota defeated Denver 4-2. That was not entirely shocking, but at the same time, a little. You would figure Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, that whole Denver team, you'd figure they would put up a bit more of a fight. First game looked like business as usual for Jokic and Murray. Then the Wolves came back and won 4 of the next 5. Randall was never a factor, even though he was on the winning side. Anthony Edwards basically carried Minnesota. Rudy Gobert was a force in the paint, as you would expect. The Timberwolves had significant injuries in the series. They still won. They now face Wembanyama and the Spurs in round 2. The injury note we need to flag on Minnesota, there were reports from Yahoo Sports of significant player injuries during the series, coming out of a physical 6-game war against the Denver Nuggets. And going into that San Antonio series, health will be a major factor. So, second round matchups, you have the Knicks versus Sixers. You have either the Cavs or Raptors versus Detroit or Orlando. You have the Thunder versus the Lakers, Spurs versus Timberwolves. And again, another game today going on this afternoon. Let's see what the time is, starting in about 15 minutes. The Magic will be taking on the Pistons in Game 7. That series has been just like the Raptors-Cavalier one. The fact that the Magic won anything has been shocking, much less pushing the Pistons, who have been the best team in the eastern side of things all year long, to 7 games. So, Paolo Banchero versus Cade Cunningham, and the winner faces either the Cavs or the Raptors. So what a day of basketball, and we haven't even gotten to some of the other stuff yet, but this has got to be one of the most loaded first rounds we've had in recent memory. The second round, hopefully, will live up to the hype. Now, our third bit of playoff business, before we get to the history that was made very recently in the last week or two, we have the Kitchener Rangers in the OHL finals for the first time since 2008. So this is some junior hockey here in Canada. The Rangers have done something that the fan base in Kitchener has been waiting 18 years for. In a way, they needed a rebuilding year from the London Knights, but they are in the OHL Championship Series. They have very strong potential to reach the Memorial Cup this year. Only Brantford stands in their way. So how did they get here? Well, Kitchener was the top seed in the Western Conference this season. They won the Midwest Division, had one of the biggest, or not biggest, but best regular season records in the league. They entered the playoffs as legit contenders, and they have delivered every step of the way. Round one, they played the Saginaw Spirit. Kitchener won that series 4-1. The Rangers dispatched Saginaw pretty comfortably. Jared Woolley scored the series clinching goal in Game 5. And Sam O'Reilly, who, going back to the World Juniors, had already established himself. That was a trade from the London Knights coming over to Kitchener. And he was a big driving force on this offense. Round two was Sault Ste. Marie and Connor George. I think it's Connor George. There's a double from Varsho just now in the top of the eighth, still 4-1. They are losing, and so back to Sault Ste. Marie. It was another efficient series win. The Rangers were dominant. Woolley on loan came from the London Knights in a mid-season trade with Sam O'Reilly. He was a point per game. The Sioux never really threatened. Then we get to the conference finals against the Windsor Spitfires. Again, Kitchener won 4-1. That's been a pretty much on point for how their playoffs are going. This series, everyone was waiting for going in. We thought Windsor was going to be more dangerous. We thought they were going to put up more of a fight. Their penalty kill was second best in the playoffs at 88.5. Their goaltender, Joey Costanzo, he was a finalist for Goaltender of the Year with a 2.0 goals against average, a .919 save percentage. And Jack Nesbitt, who is a prospect for the Philadelphia Flyers, was the leader of their attack. Windsor didn't make this easy on Kitchener, but when the Rangers needed their stars did what stars do. The clinching game, Game 5 on May 1st at Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, was a bit of a roller coaster. 5-4, I believe, was the final. Windsor came out of the gates on fire, scoring 3 goals in just over 2 minutes to take a 3-0 lead. The odd was quiet. Then Kitchener came back. Luke Ellenis, playing his first game since November because of injury, scored to make it 3-1. Christian Humphreys cut it to 1 on the power play in the second. Windsor went back up 4-2 before the Rangers tied it at 4 in the third on goals from Sam O'Reilly and Carson Campbell. Then in overtime, Luca Romano enters the zone, flips it to the middle of the ice. Dylan Edwards rips it past Costanzo's blocker. Kitchener wins 5-4 in overtime. The odd goes crazy as you might expect. And just like that, the Kitchener Rangers are Western Conference champions. They call this the Wayne Gretzky Trophy, which makes sense. It is their first, as we said, OHL finals since 2008. UC Ahokas has this team playing with identity, structure, belief. The Hockey News wrote under UC Ahokas, it really seems like this team is really well put together. So let's talk about some of the players on this roster, and it is full of talent worth knowing. Sam O'Reilly played for the World Juniors. He is a prospect for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He is an engine that helps Kitchener's offense run. He had 10 goals in his first 9 playoff games and now sits at 14 and 20 points through 13 playoff games. That puts him at the top of the OHL in goals this postseason, in the top 4 in total points. He went behind the Spitfires' defense and went 5-hole on Costanzo for the game-tying goal in Game 5. Obviously a difference maker in every sense of the word. Dylan Edwards, 2-time OHL Player of the Week. During the playoff run, he scored in overtime to clinch the game. He's been right there with O'Reilly in producing for this team. Earned first star honors in Game 5. He and Christian Humphreys are tied for the team lead in points at 15 each going into the finals. That doesn't sound right. All right, you got Christian Kirsch. He's a San Jose Sharks goaltending prospect. He's been a bit of a rock between the pipes, although those who are around this team would question that. He's got 11 wins and 13 playoff appearances. This is as much the team in front of him as it is him himself. And just 2 losses. In Game 5 clincher, he made 29 saves, including 8 in overtime. He was named OHL Goaltender of the Week during the Windsor Series. And Kirsch is the reason this team can weather storms like that 3-0 Windsor start. Again, I would question that. I would say that it's as much the team in front of him. Jared Woolley, the Los Angeles Kings defensive prospect. He was acquired from the London Knights, as was Sam O'Reilly. He's been everything that the Rangers hoped for. He was a point per game for the blue line during the Windsor series and has been an anchor on their defensive corps. He is playing like his final he is playing likely his final season of junior hockey. He has an entry-level contract already signed and will be AHL eligible next season. Christian Humphreys, 15 points, 6 goals, 9 assists through the playoffs. He's been right there in the scoring race and has been showing up in key moments throughout the run. And the return of Luke Ellenas deserves special mention. He hasn't played since November because of injury. He came back for Game 5, scored the first goal that sparked the comeback. And that is basically a Hollywood-type moment for this kid, and the crowd at the Odd absolutely felt it. Now, who do they face in the OHL Finals? Well, that is the Brantford Bulldogs. Brantford winning, and the Rangers open on the road. So, either way, Game 1 is scheduled for Wednesday, so the day that this is airing. Watch for ticket announcements on Kitchener Rangers social channels. Brentford is being the most balanced team in the OHL this year. They have 5 players averaging a point a game. Caleb Malhotra leads the attack. Their goaltending has been solid. And that's that for that. The big picture, the OHL champion earns a berth in the 2026 Memorial Cup in Kelowna, British Columbia this year. Hosted by the Kelowna Rockets, that tournament is in early June. If the Rangers win the OHL championship, they go to Kelowna to represent the OHL on the national stage after 18 years of waiting to get back to an OHL finals. This fan base deserves this moment. Don't hold your breath, Blue Jays fans. Jeff Hoffman is in the game. All right, so we have history being made this season. That's right, we are talking about the Toronto Tempo. Canada's first WNBA team will be playing its first regular season game soon. They have played their first preseason game in franchise history. We're closing out today's show with this genuinely historic Toronto sports news. I don't think we've really covered anything quite like this on the podcast before. The Toronto Tempo exist. They played their first game in franchise history on Wednesday, April 29th at Coca-Cola Coliseum. Canada now has an official WNBA team. So let's set the context. The Toronto Tempo are an expansion franchise, the 14th team in the WNBA and the first ever located outside the United States, as are most of the Toronto teams, being the first in their league, other than the NHL of course, outside of the United States. They're owned by Larry Tannenbaum through Kilmer Sports Ventures. Tannenbaum is the chairman of MLSE, with co-owners that include the likes of Serena Williams, Masai Ujiri, and Sukhinder Singh Cassidy, Lily Singh, and in a fascinating twist, Jeff Molson and France Margaret Belanger of Group CH, the ownership for the Montreal Canadiens. As mentioned, Masai Ujiri, the former Raptors president, is also part of the group. This is a powerhouse ownership structure, quite clearly. And so hopefully we won't see any financial issues for this team going forward. General Manager Monica Wright Rogers was hired in February 2025. She has put together a roster that blends veteran experience with young draft talent, and the energy around this team before even playing a regular season game has already been extraordinary. I know people from almost 2 years ago now that have already had the gear for this team ready to go for when they tip off this year. The first game, April 29th, Toronto 78 and the Connecticut Sun 83. The Temple lost their first ever preseason game to the Connecticut Sun, but here's the thing. We don't really care about the results of preseason. What we cared about at this point was, hey, our team's on the floor. They're playing now. And the atmosphere in that building was electric from the moment the doors opened. Fans lined up for merchandise. The arena was packed. When the national anthem played, the building shook. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the Coca-Cola Arena is where the Toronto Marlies play. That's the HL franchise. And fittingly, it was Hamilton's own Kia Nurse who scored the very first basket in Toronto Tempo history. A three-pointer at the 7:59 mark of the first quarter. The crowd went absolutely wild. a Canadian from Hamilton scoring the first points for Canada's first WNBA team. I don't think Hollywood could have wrote it any better. Kiki Rice, the Tempo's 6th overall draft pick, scored her first bucket in her WNBA career in that game. It was a three-pointer in the second quarter. Lexi Held led the team with 18 points. The Tempo actually held a 10-point lead in the third quarter before the Sun came back to win it. Anissa Morrow led Connecticut with 19 points off the bench and pulled away in the fourth. There were some notable absences. Julie Almond, the team's first ever expansion draft pick and the face of the franchise for many fans, was out for reconditioning. Marina Mabrey, who signed a 2-year max contract, carries the core designation. She missed the game with a back injury. Brittany Sykes, the reported $1 million free agent signing, sat with a right hip issue, and all three are expected back for the regular season opener, which is, on Friday night, May 8th, against the Washington Mystics in Toronto. The second preseason game was on Friday, May 1st, against the Minnesota Lynx. Mabrey was listed as doubtful for that one as well. Despite the preseason results, the message from the coaching staff and players has been consistent. Don't judge this team until the full roster is available and until they get actual games underway. The regular season opener, as said, on May 8th, Friday night. It's going to be one of the most attended and watched sporting events in Toronto this year. So, some players to watch, as we mentioned, Marina Mabrey. This is the cornerstone of the franchise. She carries the core designation, signed to a multi-year contract, and was pulled from the Connecticut Sun in the expansion draft. Last season with Connecticut, she averaged 14.4, 4.2, and 4 assists. A dynamic guard with an offensive skill set that would put her possibly as a WNBA All-Star in Toronto's colors. She was out for the preseason, but will be the engine that this team needs once the regular season starts. Brittany Sykes, the other multi-year contract signing. She's physically imposing, an athletic wing who can score and defend at a high level. She's been in the league for several years now. Brings playoff experience and toughness. She sprinted down both aisles after the first game, high-fiving all the fans. That is someone who understands what this team means to this city. Now, the person who understands that the most is Kia Nurse. Signed by the Tempo as the first Canadian-born player to suit up for Canada's first WNBA team, she delivered the first points in franchise history. Nurse has 7 years of WNBA experience with career averages of 8.9, 2.4, and 1.6. She played for New York, Phoenix, Seattle, Chicago. Born in Hamilton, this is a homecoming for her, and the connection between her and this market is definitely special, given that she is from here. Her family is well known, especially in the hockey world, where from Canada, that is the most important world to be known from. She has also provided her unique vision or brand of commentary to the Raptors for several years during the WNBA offseason. So this is a player that this market knows inside and out. Kiki Rice. She was the first draft pick in 6th overall for the Toronto Tempo. A UCLA guard. She is electric with the ball in her hands. She scored the first basket of her WNBA career, as we said. She's going to have growing pains as a rookie as you might imagine, but her athleticism and basketball IQ are very elite, and she is going to be a franchise cornerstone for what Toronto Tempo fans hope will be the next decade. Julie Allemand, the team's very first expansion draft pick. She's a Belgian guard who plays internationally, brings professional poise and experience to the team. She was out for reconditioning, as we mentioned, but when she's healthy and playing alongside Mabry, that'll be one of the most dynamic backcourts in the Eastern Conference. Allemand's passing and court vision are at an elite level, and she will make everyone around her better. And we'd be remiss not to mention Naira Sabale, she had a scary moment leaving the first game with a head injury in the second quarter. She's listed as out or questionable for recent games. Her health is worth monitoring because she was supposed to be a key front court piece for this team. Bottom line on the Tempo, the roster's guard heavy, as most teams are these days. They're exciting. They have ownership that is committed. The city's ready. This team starts, as we said, on Friday, May 8th against Washington. If there's tickets left, get out there, get them. Make sure you're there to witness history. This is history happening in our city as Canada finally has a WNBA team. The future starts now, as the Tempo's own slogan says. Alright, y'all. That is a wrap on today's episode of True North Sports Talk. We've covered an enormous amount of ground with the NHL playoffs, Hurricanes sweeping Ottawa, the Ducks stunning Edmonton. We got Lightning Canadians coming up. We got Raptors Cavaliers coming up. We got Pistons Magic. We had historic comebacks in the Sixers. LeBron and Bronny playing on the same floor at the same time. That was history being made. And Wembanyama's first playoff game. So don't forget, we tune in, keep watching. The playoffs are an exciting time of year. We talked Kitchener Rangers, the Wayne Gretzky Trophy champions in the OHL. We talked Sam O'Reilly, Dylan Edwards, Christian Kirsch, Jared Woolley. We welcome the Toronto Tempo to the world of WNBA. We talked about Marina Mabry, Brittany Sykes, Kia Nurse, Kiki Rice, Julie Allemand. Canada's first WNBA team is here. That is exciting to us here at True North Sports Talk. Don't forget, y'all, we need your help. Let us know in the comments what you think of the show. Ideas for future episodes. Use the hashtag True North Sports Talk in those comments. And please, make sure you subscribe to the channel, y'all. It helps us bring you and continue to bring you more and more content. And so yeah, drop us your predictions even. Until next time, that is our show for today. Keep on cheering for your teams, and we'll see you next time.